Hi, hello, and welcome to my studio. Has your day been well? I hope so. Today's episode is a bit of a long one, but I'm so excited to share with you the culmination of many hours of work, nearly 40 to be exact. First, a little background info. I work as a children's book illustrator in the Treasure Valley of Idaho. My info is already out there, so I feel comfortable enough sharing this. Because I work locally, I get requests to paint all sorts of things for all sorts of people. This project was requested by the Caldwell Public Library for their 2025 summer reading program. It was an honor to work with them again, and I wanted to show off the process from beginning to end. First, they sent me their idea, which is perfect in its simplicity. I generally work best when I'm given free rein to do what I think is best, as I feel most artists do. I took their design and fleshed it out, making sure to include every flower and icon, like the tree, sun, bird, and nest. I wanted to include the different leaf and stem shapes of each plant, as those are identifying features that are recognizable even if a plant doesn't have flowers yet. I love how each of the flowers comes from a different continent or country, and all the colors of the rainbow are included. It's such a bright, welcoming design. Then it was a matter of getting it onto the window. Here's our canvas. The first thing I did was draw a grid over the work surface. I didn't need it exact, but having the lines helped ensure that I kept everything proportional to the design. Some things grew and shrank as I worked, but I didn't have to squeeze anything in or out. Once the grid was drawn, I went in with paints. I'm using a mix of craft paints from different brands. Each brand has a different formula for their colors, which affects their opacity and coverage, and I needed to mix and match a bunch of them to get them just right. An easy way to boost the opacity of craft paints is to add white, but then you risk tinting the hue too far into pastel territory. Next to, say, Fire Truck Red, the red of this hibiscus reads more pink, but in the painting as a whole, it still reads as red, and that's fine with me. Veteran window painters will probably shake their head at my technique here. This isn't the first window I've done, not at all, but I prefer to translate my normal painting style onto windows, even if doing so presents a certain challenge. My usual style requires many layers, hiding any streaky lines so that it looks sticker-like, and I'm trying very hard not to layer elements over each other so that the image still reads clearly from the inside of the library. I did do some research for this window specifically in hopes that I can make the painting last all summer long. And one tip that kept popping up is to use a base coat of satin wall paint to fill in your shape first, to give the paint some tooth to stick to and boost the opacity. I forewent that advice for the sake of time, as this project was so big it would have been a nightmare. previous video, I touched on the morality and ethics of buying certain brands of paint and supplies from certain stores. Now, wait just a minute, I know this sounds boring, but hear me out. I didn't name names, and I still won't, but I wanted to explore that idea a bit more. When it comes to art, so much of it is already gatekept. Lessons outside of public schools are expensive, as is good quality supplies. Underprivileged individuals already have to make every penny count for food, shelter, and necessities, often leaving the arts on the back burner for years, if not forever. I was one of those kids, in fact. The first book I illustrated, as a gift for a friend, was done in Crayola-colored pencils and watercolor. I didn't pick up a Prismacolor pencil until I was an adult. What I mean to say is, if the only store in your area that sells any art medium at all is Walmart, then shop there. If the only way to get high-quality supplies is through Amazon, then buy that. If one ever finds the means to source their supplies more ethically, then they ought to do that, but not at the cost of their livelihood, as ethical brands still outpace affordability for many. If we hold all people to this standard, then all we do is gatekeep creativity to the wealthiest among us. At this point in time, I do my best to live by my morals, and to me, that means doing my best without judgment or virtue signaling. Going back to the project, I left this portion relatively unedited, as I wanted to preserve the unique chaos of large-scale projects in general. I mentioned before that I am recovering from an injury, and as such I can't do most things on my own anymore. I acquired the help of my sister, who is incredibly talented in her own right, and her husband. I'll put both of their Instagram handles in the description. I was also graced by the presence of my own husband, who famously dislikes such projects, but who came out to join me on more than one occasion to ease the burden of moving around ladders every 20 minutes. I feel very fondly about this moment in time, these few hours of companionship. I have the original videos still, audio included, and I am warmed by the thought that I can return to them to relive this moment. Here, I watch in awe as the sun moves across the window and brick, as each detail of the piece comes into focus, as each hand takes part in making this vision a reality. Did I mention I hate heights? I loathe them, actually. The ladder shenanigans of this window painting were something else entirely. It cannot be overstated how poor of a job I did setting up my camera. It humbles me deeply, and I'm ever jealous of anyone who has a dedicated camera person at their beck and call. I just put my phone on a tripod and set it down wherever the ground was most level, which often happened to be the least opportune place. and done. What a piece, my goodness. Now, true to form, I do not document the entirety of any project start to finish. I do my best, I really do, but I find it hard to remember to record anything when I'm having fun. This is the finished Garden of the World, sans white lettering, but those were applied later. The thing I like about this piece is the colors. I spent a long time mixing each shade. I didn't use hardly any of them straight out of the bottle. And I'm really proud at how well each of them vibes with each of the other ones. Green and red kind of historically look very Christmassy next to each other, but I don't get that vibe at all from the hibiscus. The orange was the most difficult one to mix as it has the least amount of opacity, and I could not layer it enough. I think we did 3 coats on the tulips, and they're still quite streakier than I prefer. I really love the shape of the tree. Trees are quite hard to paint, and this one does come off as being this old, kind of gnarled cherry tree. I love the cherry blossoms themselves. That pink really pops. And I really love the morning glories. I'm quite fond of morning glories, and I was happy to see them represented on the window. Some call them weeds, but to me they are a beloved flower. The thing I don't like about this painting is the expanse of the grass. I can't remember if I went back to add any tufts of grass, but because of the addition of the white lettering, there was not space for me to add any little blades or tufts or any uniqueness or depth to the lawn, especially the portion under the purple violets on the right hand side. Those are that grass is quite empty, and I'm not quite happy about that at all. I also really don't like the bluebird. It was the highest part of the piece on the window, and it was so difficult for me to get on the ladder and to maintain kind of a steadiness, and it made me very anxious, so I think that comes across. The proportions of the bluebird are not great, in my opinion, and I could have done it better if it were just lower on the window, I think. I hope you enjoyed this little jaunt with me today. Comment your opinions if you happened through Caldwell while this painting was up. It's likely gone now, as is the nature of window paintings, but no matter. Do what you will with the buttons below, and I will perhaps see you again. With that, so long, farewell, goodbye.